So imagine you're part of an organization for 22 years. That's a long time, right? Well, one real estate veteran did just that. And then on January 1st, he just let his membership expire. No big drama, no fireworks. It was all about a practical business decision. So yeah, let's get into it and see what was really going on behind the scenes. And right away, he's super clear about this. He's saying, look, there was no angry resignation letter, no dramatic exit. This wasn't some big protest. It really just came down to alignment and math. Plain and simple. It wasn't about burning bridges. It was just about, balancing the books for his own career path. So what exactly is that math he's talking about? I mean, that's the real question, right? When someone who's been a member for over 2 decades decides the numbers just don't add up anymore, you have to wonder, what's the calculation? Let's break down exactly what went into this decision. Okay, so first up, removing the autopilot. For years and years, renewing his membership was just something he did. It was automatic. But then, a few things happened that kind of forced him to take his hands off the wheel and really take a closer look. Let's be real, the last few years have been pretty rocky for the association. I mean, you've got these huge lawsuits and settlements, some serious leadership turmoil, and a ton of public scrutiny. All of that together would make anyone, and I mean anyone, hit the pause button and ask, hey, is this still worth it for me right now? And this is a really important point he makes. All that chaos, it didn't cause him to leave. It just, as he puts it, removed the autopilot. It was the catalyst, the thing that made him stop and consciously think about a decision that had been automatic for more than 20 years. So, with the autopilot off, it was time for what he calls an honest calculation. This is where the story shifts from the big industry headlines to his own personal bottom line. It's about the dollars and cents. Okay, check this out. 2012. That single number says so much. That's the last time he actually brokered a real estate deal. Think about that. That was over a decade ago. His career has totally changed. He's not an agent on the street anymore. He's a writer, a consultant, a speaker. His job is completely different. And this table just lays it all out perfectly. It shows you the value equation. If you're an active agent or broker, things like MLS access and association forms, absolutely essential. You can't do your job without them. But for someone like him, an industry consultant, well, he doesn't need MLS access. He doesn't use the forms. The advocacy is nice, sure, but it's indirect. The whole value proposition it's not the same. So at the end of the day, this wasn't some act of rebellion. It was just honest bookkeeping. It came down to a simple question: does it make financial sense? And paying those dues just for the sake of affiliation, well, the math just wasn't mathing anymore. And he's really quick to make this point, which I think is important. He says, I am not anti-association. He's seen the work they do up close, especially the advocacy stuff, and he knows it matters. He gets that their work on things like property rights helps literally everyone in the business, and consumers too, even if they don't see it directly. And this is where his personal story really opens up a bigger conversation. He talks about this idea of the missing middle lane. He's pointing to this whole group of people in the real estate world who don't really fit into the neat little box of active agent. Yeah, just think about it for a sec. You've got writers, consultants, speakers, advisors, all these people who are deeply, deeply engaged in the industry. They're contributing, they're paying attention, they're shaping the conversation, but they're not actively closing transactions. And for them, the standard membership model, it just doesn't quite work. And wow, does this slide put a fine point on it. So he loves the research reports the NAR puts out. They're apparently fantastic. As a member, a report might cost him, say, $20. But as a non-member, that price skyrockets to over $5,000. That's not a typo. It's this all-or-nothing deal that leaves no room for that middle lane we were just talking about. But here's the thing. He's not just pointing out the problem. He actually has a pretty smart solution. He's proposing a new kind of membership tier, a limited, non-practitioner level. It would give people like him access to some resources, like those reports, for a price that makes sense. It's a way to keep this whole group of valuable people in the fold. So really, the big idea here is recalibration, not rejection. This isn't about someone storming out in a huff. It's about one person methodically adjusting his professional life to match his reality. And honestly, there's a huge lesson in here for any organization about what it takes to earn and keep someone's trust. So how does an organization demonstrate its value? Well, he kind of boils it down to 4 key things. First, usefulness. Is it actually helpful? Second,
Clarity of purpose. Do we know what you're for? Third, a flexible model. Can you adapt to different kinds of members? And finally, unambiguous outcomes. Can you show us real, concrete results?
And this, right here, is really the heart of it. He says, trust isn't rebuilt through messaging campaigns. Value isn't proven through slogans. You can't just market your way back into relevance. It has to be about real, tangible value. You have to show it, not just talk about it. And I think this is such a critical takeaway for any group out there. You know, when a member leaves angry, it's easy to write them off. But when a long-time, 22-year veteran member leaves quietly, not out of anger, but just because it makes practical sense, that's not noise. That is feedback. And it's feedback you really, really ought to listen to. Which kind of leaves us with this big, lingering question. And it goes way beyond just real estate. In a world where all of our careers are constantly changing and evolving, how does any big organization, any association, any group prove its value when the needs of its members are a moving target? How do you stay relevant year in and year out? It's something to think about for sure.